All right, it is game time. In just a few hours, we are going to be kicking off our Emergence 2021 online free trading workshop. It's a 4-day event. There is still time to register if you haven't done so already. Make sure you head over to www.tier1trading.com. You should see a banner that says Emergence. Also, if you want to check the show notes underneath the podcast here, I will give you a link so that you can sign up and join us live or have the recordings each day mailed to you. See you guys in a few hours. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Trading Coach Podcast. Today, I'm going to take you inside one of our Q&A sessions and share with you a conversation we had on what to look for when backtesting. Let's start on backtesting patterns, and just to give you guys some background for those who are new, one of the biggest gifts and curses, I guess you can say, in my trading career is that I backtested the wrong way, right? Back when I was getting educated on trading, I approached things. I did the right thing by deciding to get educated, but I approached things the wrong way, meaning that when I was going through training courses and whatnot, I was looking for the answer and not really focused on learning how to trade. So instead of just focusing on learning the skill of trading, the skill of reading a price chart, being a well-rounded individual, I was just looking for what are the rules for the strategy that can make me money. So when I went into the backtesting process, I had the same approach. I went into backtesting just like, okay, these are the rules. I just need to backtest it because backtesting is simply the step I need to take before I can trade live and start making $1 million a day or whatever like that. And what I learned during backtesting is that I actually had a lot of questions, right? I would backtest something, and the key of backtesting is, we all do it for the results. Obviously, we want to see the quantitative data that says that what we're doing works or doesn't, right? That is important. But what's also important about the backtesting process is the journey. It is experience. I wrote this the other day. I was flattered yesterday. I got retweeted and responded to by Peter Brandt. One of the guys I look up to in the industry. We've spoken before, so I'm not as fangirl as I used to be or fanboy as I used to be. But it was I put out a piece of micro content that basically said, I'm sick of tired of people saying trading is this get rich quick scheme, blah, 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 blah. And Peter Brandt responded, said, it took him 4 years to become profitable. And what happened after that is everyone started sharing their story. I don't know how many of you guys follow me on Twitter. I had a guy unfollow me this morning because I spam too much with tweets. I said, okay, I give too much educational, inspirational, and empowering information. Okay, I get it. I know. Okay, sorry. There's a unfollow button if you want. Feel free to use it. I won't take offense. But everyone started sharing their story. I do tweet a lot, but it's not spammy stuff. It's all educational, informative stuff, or funny sports stuff, in my opinion. But everyone started sharing their journey on just how long it took them to trade. Some guy, and it was awesome to see because there's one guy that was like, it's funny, right? It's one of those things. I had a meeting with my church the other day, and we have a church that doesn't have a name because it used to be another church, and then they sold his church, so he started his own church, and they're going through the process of creating a name and becoming legal and all that stuff. It's a very long process. And he started talking about forming a men's group, and he wanted the men's group to be a place of honesty and whatnot like that, where people feel safe coming forward with their thoughts or thoughts or whatever it may be. And I felt like it was one of those times on Twitter where the majority of the time people on Twitter are just there to show their highlight reel, right? You look at social media in general, people are just sharing the best of their life. It's ESPN Sports Center, right? It was cool because when one person decided to be vulnerable, and I look at saying, hey, it took me 4 years to be profitable as being vulnerable. Everyone else felt comfortable coming out, and it was amazing. I got this warm, fuzzy feeling in my heart because people were saying, it took me 6 years, it took me this, I'm still struggling now. There was even people that came out and said, hey, it's hard for me to tell because I started investing in Bitcoin in this time, and I made like 300% gain, but I don't really think I'm consistently profitable because it's Bitcoin and it's hard to tell. And it was a cool little moment. But that led us to the conversation about experience in the market and how the best teacher in the market is experience. I do believe you need to be, well, you don't need to be, but I do believe if you are being coached or if you have a mentor, it's going to streamline that process. That's going to save you time, which is very important. You can do it by yourself. It's just the learning curve will be a lot steeper. But experience is key. And that's the cool thing about backtesting is experience, right? How many of you guys out there have backtested before? Right? You've gone through what? I don't know how many hours you spent on a chart, how many years, how many setups you've seen, right? And we always think of it as this painful process. I'm going through one bar at a time and tracking data, and half the stuff that goes into my mind that I think is going to work doesn't actually work. It works for like the first 5 trades, and I get all excited that it goes downhill and it doesn't work and I got to start over. But think about the amount of experience you're gaining, right? You're covering years of data, right? You're essentially doing this, and it's not completely the same, but if you were to backtest 10 years, right? You've earned 10 years of experience in maybe a month instead of 10 years of experience in 10 years, right? You've 10x'd your learning curve, right? It's crazy. So that experience is key. And what I learned during my backtesting experience is I started seeing things that I never thought of before because I was only looking for the answer, right? I was never curious about asking questions and whatnot. And I started seeing stuff and I would say, hey, Akil, interesting. Maybe I should try that. And of course, I was still kind of closed-minded. So when I would go back, I wasn't smart enough to be like, I should write down all of my questions and test them all at the same time, right? I would only focus on one thing because I saw that one thing as, again, the get rich quick scheme, the thing that would make me money. So I'd go back and test that one thing. And then I would test that one thing and I'd get done. I'd be like, what about this? That worked. What if I take it one step forward and try this, right? And I'd go all the way back. And I did that like a million times. And it took me a massive amount of time. Fortunately, at that time in my life, I had quit my 3 jobs. I had focused on trading because I was going to be super good really quick. So I had nothing better to do than be in front of the charts for like 12 hours a day. So I was able to backtest pretty quickly just because I had no life. I had nothing better to do but be in front of a chart and slowly damage my eyes. But it taught me from that moment on, and this is what I teach you guys now, when it comes to backtesting, you need to go to that pre-backtesting phase. You're never going to get every question answered, but I would highly recommend that you think about everything you want to backtest before you start to backtest. And things will still pop up. Don't get me wrong, right? You guys are all learning. You're still going to come up with different ideas and you may have to go back and tweak, but it's much easier to go back and tweak a couple of times than go back and tweak 15 times. So the main things that I would say to focus on in backtesting, and specifically with advanced patterns, because those are going to be pretty simple, right? But the 3 categories you want to focus on are what? Entries, stops, targets, right? So entries, how do I want to enter, right? We know that with advanced pattern formations, we typically teach an aggressive entry. So you have your completion point, the 786, the 127, the 886, whatever it may be. And we teach put an aggressive limit order on that entry. Well, something to consider, even with just using that aggressive entry, is do I want to front run? Is anyone unfamiliar with front running? Front running has saved my life a few times this year already. In my massive 13% month already, I'm on tap to do like 150% return this year. Front running is putting your order in ahead of the market to take into account the spread. So, for example, we're looking at, do I have my Ninja teed up? I do have my Ninja teed up. Give me a second here. Front running essentially is this, right? If you have a pattern completion or an entry that is set to complete at 80-70, right? Instead of putting your orders at 80-70, you're putting your orders a little bit before that level. So let's say 80-65, right? That allows you or gives you the ability to absorb the spread and get filled at the location you want to get filled at, right? Because we know how the spread works, right? If you have a 5-pip spread on Aussie yen, just random example, right? If you want to get filled at 80-70, unless you're doing an at market order, right? Price has to move to 80-75. Why? Because the broker got to get paid, right? Does that make sense, Ryan? So price actually has to spike past your order for you to get filled. So front running is putting your order here. It's going to get confusing. Front running, or what we call front running, not the illegal version. Front running is putting your order ahead of where you want to get filled so that you get filled at where you want it to get filled. If that makes sense. So that is something you could do for entries. Another thing for entries would be maybe a different technique, right? We teach different levels of entry, aggressive, super aggressive to super conservative. Maybe you write down, hey, I want to try out an aggressive entry versus a conservative entry versus a super conservative entry, right? Maybe you want to test out different entry points. We had a question the other day about, in the live room, about the cipher pattern and the inverse risk reward. And I said, yeah, that sucks, but that's what it's going to be on the cipher, right? We've had traders in the past say, hey, instead of trading it or putting an entry at the 786, I'm going to test out the 886, right? See if it gives me similar results. If it does, right, then I have similar results with a better risk reward on trades. So something like that would be for entries. For stops, right? Different stop techniques you can look at, right? We teach Fibonacci-based stops, right? Maybe trying a Fibonacci-based stop. Maybe trying different multiples of the ATR. Maybe going back to the original rules of the cipher, just speaking of the cipher, for example, of putting the stop loss 10 pips above the high, right? But jot down what ideas you want to have for stops. And then the same thing for targets, right? It could be a multiple of the ATR. It could be an equal measurement to your risk. It could be different Fibonacci levels. It could be retracements, extensions, right? It could be candlestick specific, where if you're actively managing it, you take your stop out once you see a specific candlestick. We got a whole bunch of traders playing around with the parabolic SAR right now for trailing stops, right? But those are the three areas we want to focus on when it comes to back testing. Do you guys have any other ideas that you think would be useful for this trader before he embarks on this long journey of back testing? Or did I cover it all? I didn't mean to cover it all. I actually meant to ask you guys, but I kind of went on a rant there. It happened. Don't rush it. Yeah. Yep. Don't be like me. Just don't be in search for the answer. Ask questions. Dennis says, get a lot of coffee. You could be like Darren and just have an IV of Red Bull that leads straight to the vein, right? Cut out the middleman. More people, lots of coffee or gin. Something to punch. Here's one. Take breaks. This isn't necessarily about what to back test, but in general, about take breaks. Your brain will get clouded and confused after about really 30 minutes, 40 minutes will be the upper kind of end of it. After 40 minutes of like doing the same activity, your brain's going to lose interest, right? Take breaks. Richard says schedule. Make sure you understand the rules and go over the videos and practice them before backtesting. That's a good one. We had a person the other day. in the live room, again, trading ciphers and didn't know the rules for a cipher. Unfortunately, I've seen people backtest patterns, and we get this a lot on the internet where it's like, Akil, I used to care more than I do now, but it's like, Akil, I backtested cipher patterns and they don't work. And I'm like, well, what rules are you following? This. I'm like, well, that's not the rules. Oh. Okay. I'm like, well, yeah, you back tested the wrong thing. No wonder you got bad results. Or they just haven't trained their eyes. That's another one. Make sure you train if it's specifically with patterns, make sure you train your eyes first. If not, you're going to be very random in what patterns you identify. There's going to be no consistency to it. So that's big as well. But yeah, entries, as far as just the actual stuff you should track, entries, stops, and targets. Then it says, don't be afraid to restart. Yeah. Yep. And just keep the mindset that the idea isn't to get the answer, it's to ask the questions. The idea isn't to get the answer, it's to ask the questions. Perfect. Anything else on the subject of backtesting before we get into our next subject? If I can actually find where I put my email at. Oh, watch Naomi's YouTube series about it. There we go. What is it? I've actually watched it, but I'm trying to remember the actual title so I can give it a shameless plug. Naomi G. Slide. How to backtest a strategy. There we go. Just so it does it. It's just if you go under her YouTube, Naomi G. Slight. Just look under popular uploads and watch the series. Right? There's a how to backtest strategy video. There's a 3-part series on using spreadsheets. Yep. There's even stuff where it's like the importance of taking screenshots of what you're testing. Right? It's a very, 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 very good series. And I'm not just saying that because Naomi is a tier 1 member. It is actually an extremely good series. By the way, again, I say this all the time, and I know not everyone's doing it. If you guys ever, I want to help and promote the stuff that you guys are doing. That is something that's very important to me. However, my memory is pretty bad. Do not ever feel ashamed to say, hey, Akil, I put out this new video. I put out this new podcast. I put out this new infographic. Do you mind sharing it? Like that does nothing but remind me, right? Now, if you're out there just like, I'm not going to, if you're like, just like shameless selling promotion, I'm not going to do that. Where it's like, hey, Akil, sell this course for me. Like every day. I'm like, that's just too much. But please don't be afraid to do that. Because I think you guys are, obviously I think you guys think the right way about trading. My job is to, or my goal is to spread what I believe should be the realistic view on trading. And the more people we can get spreading that message, the better it is for all new traders out there. Like that is my number one intention, because it sickens me when I see people scammed and falling for this and just all the bad stuff that happens out there. So don't feel ashamed. And the same thing goes, I told Raymond this the other day, I've done it with him before. If you guys ever, if you're doing videos or anything like that, right, and you want a little bit of a plug in my weekend video, if you feel like, hey, you had a really good video this week or whatever it is, or a podcast, let me know, and I'll put it in the weekly video as well. I really want to build out a chance for you guys to help develop your brand and whatnot. That's important. We're going to try and do that more on the website. That's one of the things we discussed with kind of the new upgrades we have is building out a place for you for that. But don't feel ashamed. Trust me. I know people are sometimes afraid to ask, and you feel guilty, and you're like, I don't want to take advantage. You're not. I want you to do that because I want to help you. I wouldn't be in the position I'm at if someone didn't help me do the same. So do it. Don't be ashamed. I don't mind.